This is the Chris Berry Show. Expert information on wealth, estate, and tax planning for the second half of life. Information that you can understand. Here's your host, Chris Berry.
Welcome, everyone. This is Chris Berry, and we're going to start with a positive focus, just like we do every time we do the radio show. And this week's positive focus is that my kids have wrapped up a soccer season. With everything going on and schools being in person or virtual, my 10-year-old boy, Ryan, and my 7-year-old girl, Madison, they rocked it during the soccer season. We were able to get in. I think each of them had about 6 or 8 games. They had to wear masks, and we had to wear masks on the sidelines, which was, I won't get into that, but it was fun to have soccer practice a couple days a week with each of them and then have their games. So a little bit of normal in this crazy, crazy time. And speaking of crazy times, we just had an election. I'm not going to get into it this week, but maybe a future radio show we'll talk about the effect the election will have on your retirement and legacy, but we'll save that for next time. Kind of let everything settle a little bit before we touch that one. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on Medicare. So with open enrollments right now, I think it's important to talk about how Medicare can have an effect in your retirement. And we'll get into that in our second and third segments of the Chris Berry Show. But before we get into that, I just want to talk about where kind of Medicare fits into the overall plan. So what we do at our firm, Castle Wealth Group, is we focus on retirement and legacy planning, where there's really 5 key areas that anyone needs to think about as they move into retirement. And the first part is income planning. So planning for to replace your income in retirement. So while you're working, it's all about the paychecks. And then when you retire, how do you go about replacing those paychecks? And we look to things like Social Security. And we've had a lot of conversations about Social Security in the past. When's the best time to take it? As well as the pension. Do you take a pension? Do you take the lump sum buyout? When do we draw on our assets? How do we structure that income in retirement? Understanding that we're living longer than ever. And so we need to have a plan for income in retirement. And then the second piece of that is investment planning, making sure their investments are invested in such a way that we're comfortable with, so that with the ups and downs, especially in this election year and everything that's happened and the drops in March, making sure that we're invested in such a way that we're comfortable. And the way that you invested while you're working and accumulating wealth might be different than how you want to invest as you approach getting your retirement and finally retire. Maybe we should look at kind of reanalyzing how much risk we're willing to take on in our portfolios. And I saw a recent article in Forbes talking about the death of the 60-40 portfolio, which was kind of interesting because there's always been this idea that, well, as you move near retirement, you have more bonds in your portfolios and maybe you have a 60% in equities, 40% in bonds, and that's going to get you through retirement. But with underperforming bonds caused by the interest rates, there's some questions of whether that's the best route to go. And so we tailor any investment plan to our individuals and families in terms of that retirement legacy blueprint that we create for our clients. Third piece is tax planning. So taxes, and I think this is one of the biggest risks that we need to take into account is with the potential ending of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, with the Secure Act that just passed, with the $23 trillion in debt we had as a country coming into 2020. And now we have the CARES Act 1 that added another $2.2 trillion and maybe CARES Act 2, which might add another $1 to $3 trillion. We might get out of 2020 with over $30 trillion worth of debt that this country needs to figure out a way to manage. And so the question is, are we going to cut spending or raise taxes? Well, I'll let you answer that question. And if you say raise taxes, then take a look at those pre-tax retirement accounts, your traditional 401ks, IRAs, 403bs. If taxes go up, guess what? Those go down. And this is one of the biggest conversations we've been having, especially as we get near the end of the year, is how are we going to manage taxes, not just this year, but for our retirement and what we leave as a legacy. Because understand, the government's coming after those pre-tax accounts. And we saw that with the Secure Act, where they said that instead of that 10-year stretch or the lifetime stretch on inherited IRAs, all the taxes have to be paid within 10 years. So understand, the government realizes that they have about $25 trillion in these pre-tax accounts that they want to try to get their hands on to satisfy at least a portion of this $30 trillion deficit we have as a country. So tax risk, I think, is one of the biggest issues out there right now and one of the biggest opportunities because we have this window of opportunity thanks to the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act where taxes are basically on sale. IRAs are on sale. We should be looking at strategies to minimize taxes over your, not just in a particular year, but over your lifetime. And if you do want some information on that or start that process or have a conversation with us, give our office a call at 844-885-4200, 884-885-4200. And one of the things we can do is run a tax analysis for you, looking at different scenarios based on where your pre-tax accounts are and what income tax bracket you are in. And that's a deliverable. Just mention that you heard it on the radio show, and we'll set up a phone call to start that process. So if you do want us to run that qualified tax analysis for you, looking at minimizes taxes, not just in any specific year, looking at taxes through a micro lens, but minimizing taxes over your lifetime, give our office a call at 844-885-4200, and we can schedule a time to talk about it or send you some more information on that. I can even send you some sample reports so you know what we're looking at there. But again, tax risk is one of the biggest risks out there right now, and it's one of the biggest opportunities for families to take some proactive steps to protect yourself from taxes going up in the future. Fourth, and this is what we're going to focus on really the rest of the program today, is healthcare planning. And really, we break healthcare planning into two aspects. First is long-term care planning, and that's another one of the big three risks I see right now, the big three being market risk, tax risk, and long-term care risk. People are living longer than ever. The cost of long-term care is skyrocketing. I had a family call in a week or two ago to our office, and they said that mom is in a nursing home paying $14,500 per month. $14,500 per month. And the question is, how in the world are you going to go about paying for that? So long-term care risk, I think, is really one of the top three risks, along with tax risk and, of course, market risk, given the 12-year bull run that we've been on and the state of the economy post-pandemic. And the other part of healthcare planning is Medicare. And this is what we're going to spend some time talking about today in our second and third segments, is understanding the alphabet soup that is Medicare. And I think it's timely information given that we're in open enrollment period right now, which runs from October 15th to December 7th. So we'll spend some time talking about Medicare today, the alphabet soup, the Part A and B and C and D, and which of those do you need and which plan do you get, Plan A or G or N, or there's a lot that goes into it. I don't know why they create it in such a way, but it's almost more confusing than taxes, I think, sometimes. But we'll talk about Medicare. And then fifth is legacy planning. So this is really where our firm started as an attorney and an investment advisor, helping clients put together an estate plan, elder law plan, making sure that whatever they have moves as efficiently and effectively as possible to the next generation if they were to pass away. Creating the legal structures of, do I need a will versus a trust, and which is right for my family, and what type of trust do I want? Do I want a revocable trust that just avoids probate and controls the distribution? Or do I want a castle trust that avoids probate, controls the distribution, and then builds in protections from lawsuits and long-term care? So understand there's more than just that basic revocable trust that a lot of, not to belittle, but a lot of estate planning attorneys kind of peddle these on clients when sometimes they don't even need a trust. Because if your only goal is to avoid probate, you don't always need a trust. You could rely on things like beneficiary designations and a ladybird deed to avoid probate. But a lot of my clients do have trusts because they want to protect their beneficiaries and protect against long-term care costs and lawsuits. And so not so much just that basic revocable trust, but we're doing things like legacy inheritance trusts and castle trusts. So those are the 5 key areas that we focus on as a firm: income planning, investment planning, tax planning, healthcare planning, and legacy planning. And we can help you with just one aspect of that. Maybe you want a tax analysis, want us to run that qualified accounts tax analysis, looking at how much tax you have in your pre-tax accounts. What happens if you were to pay the tax now versus continue to defer? And what a lot of people don't realize is that when you pay the tax sooner, a lot of times you pay less overall tax. And we've had a lot of conversations about this. And one thing I'd invite our listeners to attend is every Wednesday at 1 o'clock. So we're big on education at the firm here. My dad was a professor for, I think, 47 years teaching psychology. And so I'm a big believer in education. So in addition to the radio show that we do every week, we also do a webinar every week, and we call these wisdom webinars. So every Wednesday at 1 o'clock, we do an educational webinar that's really led by the attendees, where each week I have people email me in some questions, or even they just log into the webinar and they ask questions live, and it's just me and my whiteboard, and there's no PowerPoint or anything. It's really just an educational, almost conversation where I get input on the fly from individuals, which I wish we could do on the radio show. But every Wednesday at 1 o'clock, and you can register for these by going to wisdomwebinar.com. Wisdomwebinar.com, WISDOMWEBINAR.com, wisdomwebinar.com. And really, it's was created out of our need, or my need, to kind of provide this education. With the pandemic and the social distancing, we haven't been able to do our workshops that we did on a regular basis. So this was something that every Wednesday at 1 o'clock, I just log in, greet everyone with a positive focus, and then we dig into some of the questions and answers. And sometimes we go 20 minutes. Last time we went, we actually filled up the whole hour, where I had to hop off because I had another Zoom conference call with some clients. But yeah, and we also record all of them too. So they go up on our YouTube channel, Castle Wealth Group Legal YouTube. If you just kind of plug it into YouTube, you should be able to find us there. And that's where we take these radio shows, we take the wisdom webinars, and then also we have what we call Barry's Bites, where we take snippets from the webinar, kind of recut it, where it's maybe 5 minutes of me talking about Social Security optimization strategies. So we're big believers in education. Now, of course, with that is the disclaimer that it's general information. Don't rush out and apply it. It's always important to sit down with a professional before you take action on these things, because there's a lot of exceptions to maybe some general rules out there, like that rule of the 60-40 portfolio being the godsend, where you can just put together 60% equities, 40% bonds, and take out 4% for the rest of your life. What we found is with underperforming bonds, maybe that general rule, it doesn't apply all the time. So again, I invite you to these wisdom webinars every Wednesday at 1 o'clock. And again, even if you can't attend, I recommend you register because we record all of them, and you can watch them, old versions, on the YouTube. So just submit a question there, and then within a day or so, the webinar will be up on YouTube, and you can watch it. So again, we're big believers in education. We take a very educational approach as we're working with families. And if something that I've said today in one of those areas kind of piques your interest, feel free to give our office a call, 844-885-4200. We can help you with maybe just one aspect of retirement and legacy planning, or we can put together a whole retirement and legacy blueprint where we map out what is your income strategy, your investment strategy, your tax strategy, your healthcare strategy, including long-term care and Medicare, and your legacy strategy. Do you need a will? Do you need a trust? What type of trust should you be looking at? And how can we maximize that legacy? And what a lot of families find is that it's pretty eye-opening going through our process. For example, I had a family come in last week just to talk really estate planning as a starting point. But then we got into some of the tax consequences of certain decisions they were making or they had made in the past and that they were concerned with. We talked about some of the issues, how we're leaving things to the kids, what's the best way to leverage their assets, because leaving a legacy was important to them. And it was pretty eye-opening for them. And the wife even commented, this was a lot. This was very helpful. This is exactly what we needed. So if that's something that's of interest to you, give our office a call, 844-885-4200, and we can get started on that retirement and legacy blueprint. And if you already have some things in place, that's where we're great at offering a second opinion from a very educational standpoint. For example, you might be saying, well, I already have a will or a trust. Well, that's where one of the things that me and my team can do for you is run what we call an estate planning audit, where we take a look at what you have, run it through this 10-point checklist, and then you can walk away with the knowledge of knowing, you know what, you're all set, or maybe there's some gaps in coverage, or maybe some things are not as complete as you thought they were. And now is an opportunity to make a decision on whether it's important to you to get that corrected. So again, give us a call, 844-885-4200. This has been Chris Berry, and join us as we begin the conversation talking about the alphabet soup of Medicare.
Hi, we're Madison and Ryan Berry.
Our dad is Chris Berry from the Castle Wealth Group.
The Castle Wealth Group used to be the elder care firm, but Dad wanted the company to be broader in its scope of services.
To not only protect and preserve assets, but to help people grow their assets to prepare for retirement.
As a certified elder law attorney and fiduciary financial advisor, our dad and his team at Castle Wealth Group can help you with lots of important things.
To tell you more, here's our dad, Chris Berry.
Thanks, Maddie and Ryan. Here at the Castle Wealth Group, we can help you put together an estate plan to avoid probate, work with you on a tax plan to keep more money for your family and less for Uncle Sam, and protect you against the devastating cost of long-term care. Our team is here for your family. I invite you to learn more about the Castle Wealth Group at our next free workshop, where you will learn the 3 steps to create a legal, financial, and tax plan for the second half of life. Call us today to register at 844-885-4200.
The Castle Wealth Group, formerly the elder care firm.
Learn more at thecastlewealthgroup.com today.
All right, so today what we're going to do is we're going to cover or discuss Medicare. Different than Medicaid. Medicaid pays for long-term care. Medicare can be confusing. Some people call it an alphabet soup. But today we'll look at the basics of Medicare, where there are gaps in coverage, how Medicare supplements can fill in those gaps, and who can sign up for the coverage and when you can sign up. So we'll cover Medicare basics, Medicare supplements, prescription drug coverage, and important dates and more. And so why is this important is because healthcare costs are increasing. I think healthcare is one of the 5 key areas that you need to focus on when it comes to putting together a retirement and legacy plan. And in 2017, there's national spending on healthcare was $3.5 trillion. And that's projected, and it's projected to grow at roughly 5.5%. So, it's one of those things where you look at just normal inflation, and there's 2 things that are just skyrocketing in terms of cost. One of those is healthcare costs, both health insurance premiums as well as long-term care costs. And then the second thing, which affects me because my kids are 10 and 7, is college funding. It's amazing just how much these increase each year, and way more than just typical inflation. And another important thing to take into account is that seniors spend more on healthcare than anyone else. And in terms of spending, typically seniors on average spend about 13.6% of their expenses are spent on healthcare. That's more than food, more than clothes, more than entertainment, a little less than transportation and housing. So it's number 3 in terms of the spending for seniors in retirement. Versus people younger than 65, healthcare really only amounts to about 8% of their expenses. So that's why it's so important in retirement. And this is where Medicare steps in to help cover some of this. So what is Medicare? Well, Medicare is the largest insurance program offered by the U.S. government, serving more than 55 million people. And it's run by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid. We call this CMS, and it's part of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And really, now that you know kind of who runs Medicare, what is Medicare? Well, Medicare is really divided into 3 key parts. And I think this is the best framework to understand Medicare. So you're going to have what's called Original Medicare, which is Medicare's Part A and B. These are put together by the feds. Part C is called the Medicare Advantage plan. And then Part D is a prescription drug program. So really, Medicare is divided just into those 3 parts. So think of it as you have Original Medicare, which is Part A and B. You have Medicare Advantage, which is Part C. And then you have Part D, which is the prescription drug coverage. Now, we have to dive a little deeper into that, but keep that framework in mind as we're talking about this. So Original Medicare is offered by the federal government. And Original Medicare is Part A, and Part A covers things like hospital stays, skilled nursing, hospice, home health. Now, there's limitations on this. It doesn't fully cover it, and we'll talk more about that. And that's where supplement plans come into play. So Medicare Part A covers hospital, skilled nursing, hospice, and home health to certain limits. And then Medicare Part B, as in boy, helps cover doctor appointments, outpatient care, occupational physical therapies. So again, Medicare Part A covers hospital, skilled nursing, hospice, home health. Medicare Part B covers doctor appointments, outpatient care, occupational physical therapies. And then Medicare Part C and D, we need to make a distinction because now these are offered by private companies. And this is where Medicare is confusing and hard to understand for a lot of people because it's this mess or conglomeration or mixture of both federal programs and private programs helping individuals with their health care. So Medicare Part C and D, unlike Part A and B, are offered through private companies. Now, the feds give them guidelines, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But Medicare Part C and D are offered by private companies. So what does Medicare Part C cover? Medicare Part C helps cover everything that Medicare Part A and B covers, and often covers additional services like dental, vision, and wellness programs. So think of it like this. Most people are either going to choose Original Medicare, A and B, or they're going to choose Part C, which is also called the Medicare Advantage. Medicare Part A and B is offered through the federal government. Medicare Part C has to cover everything that Medicare and Part A and B does, but has some additional benefits that can be thrown in because it's offered by private companies. And then Medicare Part D, I think this is the easiest to understand. When you hear Part D, think drugs. So Medicare Part D helps cover prescription drugs. Now, again, typically your Medicare options are going to be answered or covered through one of 2 routes. You're either going to choose Original Medicare or you're going to choose the Advantage plan. Now, with Original Medicare, you're going to choose Part A and B. And then typically what most people do is they add on a Medicare supplement insurance policy from a private company. And we'll talk about why that's important. And we'll go into more detail about it, but think of that as filling in some of the gaps that Medicare Part A and Part B don't cover. And then on top of the Medicare Part A and B and that Medicare supplement plan, a lot of times you also choose, or almost always, you'll choose a Part D standalone prescription drug plan from a company. So if you go the original Medicare route, you don't just stop with A and B, you still bring in some of the private companies with a supplement plan and Part D. Or you might go the Medicare Advantage route, which basically replaces Medicare Part A and B and often include prescription drug coverage as part of the plan. Or if not, you could get a standalone Medicare Part D package as well. So those are the two routes that most people go, is either original Medicare, which is Part A and B, and then add on a supplement policy and a Part D, or they choose an Advantage plan. So understand, with original Medicare, you're going to pay some of the cost. So most people get their Medicare coverage in one of two ways. They choose the original Medicare or they choose the Advantage plan. When choosing original Medicare, you enroll for Parts A and B, and then most people, like I said, purchase a standalone drug plan. It is common for individuals to also purchase a Medicare supplement plan to help cover the gaps in original Medicare. And original Medicare is the most widely chosen option, as there's no required networks to be a part of, and it provides consistent fixed expenses each month. When choosing Medicare Advantage, you get the coverage of Parts A and B, and often Part D is included. And there is generally a lower monthly expense to the Medicare Advantage than the Medicare supplement. And that's key, is that lower average or lower monthly expense. But the Medicare Advantage requires you to select a network of providers and generally has higher out-of-pocket costs than original Medicare plus a supplement. Today, we're going to focus mostly on original Medicare's Part A and B, and we'll also take a look at Medicare Part D and the Medicare supplements as well. And original Medicare was never intended to cover all of a retiree's health expenses, similar to how Social Security was never intended to be a retiree's sole form of income in retirement. And in fact, talking about Social Security, when Social Security was created, the full retirement age, so when you get full Social Security, was age 65. The average life expectancy at the time Social Security was started was 63. Let that sink in terms of how Social Security program has really changed. Now a lot of people depend on it for a source of income in retirement. So back to Medicare, the remaining portion of the cost can vary based on the service provided, and we'll get into more detail on that. But Medicare Part A is going to cover hospital stays up to a certain time period. It's going to cover up to a certain time period. And then once you get past that 60 days, then you're going to have a copay. And this is where supplement plans sometimes kick in. And likewise, they're going to pay if you need skilled nursing care, up to 20 days will be covered by original Medicare. But days 21 to 100, you're going to have a copay of $176 per day unless you have a supplement plan. And I've seen this firsthand. I was working with an individual. He was power of attorney for a friend that didn't really have much family. And somehow or another, the friends did not have a Medicare supplement plan. And then he was hospitalized and then needed a nursing home. And his first 20 days, there was nothing out of pocket. But then he continued to remain in the nursing home. And normally the supplement plan would step up and cover that up to the 100 days. But he didn't have a supplement plan. And now he was paying $176 per day for that nursing home care. And all he had to have done is just have that supplement plan in place in the first place. And that would have wiped out that $176 per day cost. So 5 days of that, that's about $880. So it's about $1,000 a week almost, if you don't have that supplement plan in place. So those supplement plans can really be very important for a lot of individuals as they're, especially if you're concerned about long-term care and concerned about nursing home care, things like that. Most people I see have supplement plans. Now, most people don't have a monthly premium for Part A as long as you have 40 tax quarters or paid 10 years of Medicare taxes. You get Part A at no cost. You will, however, have a Part A annual deductible of, in 2020, it was roughly $1,400 total. You also have copays for hospital and skilled nursing stays. And you can see those, or we talked about those already. And then for Part B, your monthly premium is based on your modified adjusted gross income 2 years prior. And we have a handy worksheet that shows these. We call it key data. So we have a key data for 2020, and we're putting together a key data for 2021 because the numbers change every year. And the interesting thing is, again, it's like 2 years lagging. So your Medicare Part B premium in 2020 is based on whatever your adjusted gross income was in 2018. And that monthly premium can range anywhere from $144.60 to $491.60 per month. So there's quite a wide range. And one of the things that's interesting to note, and as we're talking about taxes and that type of thing, and the idea that taxes are probably going up in the future, and we're pulling money out of these IRAs, understand that when you pull money from a 401k or IRA or 403b and it's pre-tax, well, that's going to affect your adjusted gross income, and that could actually affect your Medicare premiums. So when we're talking about maybe doing something like a Roth conversion or something like that, where we're basically ripping the Band-Aid off to remove the Internal Revenue Service as a partner on these pre-tax accounts, understand that can also have an effect on your Medicare premiums 2 years following. But then if you only did the conversion in 1 year, understand your Medicare premiums will go back down. So a lot of times what happens is that, you'll pay a little more in Medicare premiums when you're doing the conversion, but you'll save a ton on taxes in the long run. And this is something we can help you with. If you're interested in see the interplay of these two things, give our office a call at 844-885-4200. Again, 844-885-4200. Happy to help you kind of understand how Medicare and taxes all fit together. Now, in 2019, according to Medicare.gov, the official website for Medicare, on average, a person in good health would average about $654 per month in expenses versus someone who has maybe diabetes. That could range anywhere from $800 to $900 per month. If you're to have a heart attack, could easily be over $1,000 a month of out-of-pocket costs on top of your premiums. And this is where a Medicare supplement plan comes into play, where the Medicare supplement plan can help offset some of these costs, like the copay for skilled nursing from days 21 to 100. That's something that a Medicare supplement plan could help cover. Could help cover some of the co-payments, co-insurance, yearly deductibles. That's where a Medicare supplement plan comes into play. So you pay nothing typically from Medicare Part A with original Medicare. Part B, you're going to have a premium. You put those two together, now you have original Medicare, but there's still those gaps that we talked about. Well, this is where a Medicare supplement plan comes in and helps close some of those gaps. And if you have questions on Medicare, or if you're turning 65 and retiring, and it's time for you, and we'll talk about the dates for Medicare, to get started with this process, give our office a call at 844-885-4200. Happy to walk you through the process. Again, the phone number is 844-885-4200. And we also have some handy guides on understanding Medicare, where if you give our office a call, we leave your name and address, we can send you one of our Medicare guides. 844-885-4200.
Hi, Madison and Ryan Berry here from the Castle Wealth Group, formerly the Elder Care Firm.
Our dad is Chris Berry.
He's an attorney and fiduciary financial advisor, which means he helps families plan, protect, and preserve their assets.
The entire team at the Castle Wealth Group can help you with lots of important things. To tell you more, here's our dad, Chris Berry.
Thanks, Maddie and Ryan. Here at the Castle Wealth Group, we can help you put together an estate plan to avoid probate, work with you on a tax plan to keep more money for your family and less for Uncle Sam, and protect you against the devastating cost of long-term care. Our team is here for your family. I invite you to learn more about the Castle Wealth Group at our next free workshop, where you will learn the 3 steps to create a legal, financial, and tax plan for the second half of life. Call us today to register at 844-885-4200, 844-885-4200, or visit us at castlewealthgroup.com.
The Castle Wealth Group, formerly the Elder Care Firm.
Learn more at thecastlewealthgroup.com today.
All right, so we're talking Medicare, and we're talking about how Medicare Part A and B covers some of the costs of healthcare and retirement, but doesn't fully cover all of them. And so that's where we add in a Medicare supplement policy, which again doesn't cover everything, but it helps ease some of that healthcare burden. And so again, on average in 2019, you're looking at about $7,850 per year of out-of-pocket expenses, even if you're in good health. And with a Medicare supplement plan, we can reduce the risk for these high out-of-pocket expenses by giving a more fixed monthly amount, eliminating unexpected expenses, which again, that's one of the keys in retirement, is trying to mitigate some of these risks. Mitigate the tax risk, like we talked about, mitigate healthcare risks, long-term care risks, etc. Because you want to have peace of mind in retirement. And that's what we try to do when we're putting together a retirement legacy blueprint, is create peace of mind so that you have a blueprint for how the rest of your retirement's going to go, as well as what you leave to the next generation. And if you want help with that, give our office a call, 844-885-4200. We can start with a short phone call, just trying to figure out where you're at, and we can help you get to where you need to go. So this is where, again, a Medicare supplement. What is a Medicare supplement? So unlike original Medicare, a Medicare supplement plan is offered through private insurance companies. Again, this mismatch or putting the puzzle together of federal government and private insurance companies. And insurance companies are required to offer the same basic benefits for each lettered plan, though they do have the ability to charge different premiums. So again, any Plan G from a supplement policy, it's going to be the same, other than maybe the cost might be different. So Medicare supplement plans help cover the gaps in original Medicare, things like co-payments, co-insurance, and yearly deductibles. And there's a lot of different Medicare supplement plan options out there, everything through A through F. Some of these are grandfathered in, some are not available anymore. But I would say most people look at Plan G and N are the most common plans selected by enrollees. They cover nearly all the potential costs and allow you to have a predictable out-of-pocket cost. Plan G offers the second most comprehensive coverage other than Plan F, but again, Plan F isn't available anymore. And then Plan N is similar to Plan G, but it requires a $20 copay when going to the doctor and a $50 copay when going to the emergency room. But I would say majority of people choose typically Plan G. Some choose Plan N. So let's look at what an example, if an individual was a 65-year-old male with Plan G coverage. So the Plan G covers all the expenses except the Part B deductible of $198. It's going to cover in some of the co-insurance and co-pays. Typically, on average, if you just have original Medicare, your average out-of-pocket cost, if you're healthy, would be $655. And your total out-of-pocket with a Medicare supplement plan would only be $264. So again, having that supplement plan, specifically Part G, helps cover some of the unexpected costs of retirement. So some of the things will go away, like the skilled nursing copay from days 21 to 100. A lot of those things end up going away with that Medicare supplement plan. So again, original Medicare, typically you're going to have Part A and Part B. You're going to add a supplement plan, and then you need to think about Part D. So question is, what is Medicare Part D? Medicare Part D is an optional prescription drug benefit program intended to help Medicare beneficiaries reduce out-of-pocket drug costs. It's a federally enacted program, but it's administered by private insurance companies. Again, like I've been talking about, it's this interplay between the feds and the federal government and private insurance companies. Medicare Part D, pretty easy to remember. D stands for drugs. Part D is a prescription drug coverage. Part D plans are required by federal law to offer the basic benefits offered by Medicare. So again, most Part D plans are going to be similar. And you usually choose Part D in one of two ways. It is optional, but if you decide to delay Part D, you may incur a late enrollment penalty. But most Part D comes in most Part D plans come one of two ways. A standalone coverage to cover your medicines. So this would be, you choose original Medicare, which is Medicare Part A and B, and then you choose a standalone plan. Or Part D might be part of your Medicare Advantage plan. And again, that's where Part C, Medicare Advantage, covers A, B, and D with maybe some additional benefits. And you can learn more about this also at Medicare.gov. There's a great resource available at Medicare.gov, and I reference that quite a bit myself. So now we're going to talk about how to enroll in Medicare, some important dates, and just a couple of miscellaneous items here. So let's look at who is eligible. So at age 65, you're eligible for Parts A and B, even if you still work. And there's a lot of confusion on this. This question comes up a lot is, when am I eligible? Do I have to take it or will I receive a penalty? You may be eligible for Medicare through your spouse, although you still must qualify by age or disability. You may also qualify for Medicare Parts A and B if you're under 65 and you have a disability. And then automatic enrollment happens in Part A and B quite frequently. Automatic enrollment for those receiving Social Security benefits happen at age 65 or railroad retirement benefits. And the initial enrollment period package is mailed 3 months prior to turning 65 and typically will include your Medicare card. And then there's the Medicare initial enrollment period. So in the 3 months prior to turning 65, the month in which you turn 65, and the 3 months after turning 65 are what's known as the initial enrollment period, or the IEP. And if you retire after 65, enrollment depends when your employer-sponsored plan or coverage ends. And this is important to understand. So most people take Medicare Part A, and they have a question because it's free. And then the question is, what about taking Medicare Part B? Do you have to take it right at 65, or will you face the penalty? Because if you don't take it at the right time and you enroll at a later date, you might be penalized for Medicare Part B. Now, the interesting thing is you do not have to take your Medicare Part B if you're enrolled in an employer-sponsored plan that meets the requirements. So if you're receiving health insurance through your employer, you may not have to also enroll in Medicare Part B, and in fact, it might not make sense to do so. In which case, when your employer-sponsored coverage ends, maybe that's when you would enroll in Medicare Part B. And I know it's confusing, so if you have questions, give our office a call, 844-885-4200. 844-885-4200. And then you have Medicare supplements enrollment periods. Open enrollment period starts the month of your Medicare Part B effective date and lasts for 6 months. And the important part here is your guaranteed issue, regardless of any health status. And if you were to enroll in a supplement plan outside of your enrollment period, you may have to pass medical underwriting, and there's no guarantee to issue from the insurance company. So that's why it's very important to think about when you're first enrolling in Medicare, which plan you want to go or which route you want to go. Some important dates, October 15th through December 7th. This is the annual election period for Medicare Advantage plans and prescription drug plans. So that's the Part C and Part D. And then for the next calendar year, and the effective date is January 1st. And then January 1st through March 31st, this is the annual disenrollment period if choosing to return to original Medicare. Some other helpful resources for you, like I already mentioned, Medicare.gov that's where a lot of this information is housed. You can give our office a call. We have a Medicare guide to help walk you through understanding Medicare. You can give us a call at 844-885-4200. And understand that Medicare can be confusing. There's a lot of misinformation out there where you talk to like your friend or your neighbor or someone at work, and there's a lot of details. And that's why it's important to work with, make sure that you have someone kind of holding your hand and going through the information that applies to you, because you can go online and you can find whatever you're looking for online, whether it's right or not. It really depends. And I find that's really kind of one of, I would say that all the information is out there. We just have to find the right information that applies to you. And it's like I have this mug in my office that your Google search doesn't trump my law degree. Because understand that everything on the internet, it's not always accurate, which when you talk to friends or in the past used to be someone at the salon or something like that, you might not have all the facts. Every situation is a little bit different. So when you're choosing a Medicare plan, there's no hard and fast rule that everyone should choose the original Medicare or everyone should choose the Medicare Advantage. It really is an individualized decision, and our approach is make sure that you understand all the rules. We want to educate you on it, and then help you make the right choice moving forward. And again, Medicare is just one of the areas that we help people. It's one of the Medicare fits into healthcare planning, which is one of the 5 areas that we focus on as a firm as it relates to creating a retirement and legacy blueprint, something that will guide you through your retirement years and guide your beneficiaries upon death. That's what we focus on at our firm. And there's 5 key areas that make up a retirement and legacy blueprint. First is having an income plan in retirement. So when are you going to draw Social Security? How are you going to draw on your assets? Should you take a pension? Should you take a lump sum buyout? Understanding that when you retire, all of a sudden that income, the income you had from your wages, goes away. Second is having an investment plan, making sure that your assets are invested in such a way that you're comfortable with. Understanding that approaching retirement, it's kind of like climbing a mountain. Once you retire, you're at the top of the mountain, and the skills you use to get to that top of the mountain might be different than the skills you use to get back down. So the portfolio or the portfolio manager used to accumulate that wealth, maybe you should look at a different one as it relates to getting back down the mountain. Retirement planning is different than investing for growth. It's a different skill set. We need to take into account different things. The amount of risk maybe should be different in your portfolio as you approach and move into retirement. Third would be tax planning. And this is one of the big 3 risks of market volatility or market risk, long-term care risk, and tax risk. Understanding that with the current laws of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the Secure Act that's passed, the CARES Act that's passed, the $30 trillion in debt we have as a country, understand that may have an effect on your retirement. And so there's some things that we should look at doing to minimize taxes, not in any specific year, but minimize taxes over your lifetime. Having that tax plan in retirement, as well as what you leave to the next generation. Fourth, healthcare planning. That's what we focused on today, is looking at how we're going to handle healthcare costs. Which Medicare options should we choose of that alphabet soup of Part A and B or C, or Part A and B and D or C? Which supplement plan should we choose? Is it G? Do we stay with F if we have it? A lot of questions there. And along with that is also long-term care risk. How do we cover long-term care costs? Because Medicare really only pays for short-term rehab. It doesn't pay for long-term care. If you have a loved one that has a stroke or has dementia and now needs nursing home care for the rest of their life, and the average stay in a nursing home is about 2.5 years. Medicare, even if you have a supplement plan, only covers up to 100. How are you going to cover the rest? So having that plan for long-term care. And then fifth, the legacy plan. Okay, how do we make sure that whatever you have goes efficiently and effectively as possible to the next generation? Do you have an estate plan? Is it a will-based estate plan? Is it a trust-based estate plan? If it is a trust, do you have the right type of trust? Is it a revocable trust, or is it a castle trust, an asset protection trust? Have you covered your final expenses so that your loved ones aren't holding the bag when you pass away? Because understand that it takes a couple of weeks for those death certificates to come in. So how are your loved ones going to handle the funeral? How are they going to handle taking time off work, traveling to get there? That's where you should have that estate bridge, something to cover those final expenses that's available immediately. And that's all part of legacy planning. So we can help you with just one of those areas. Maybe you want a review of that estate plan, or you need help with Medicare, or you have questions about taxes, or you're concerned about where the market's going to go, or you don't know how to claim Social Security. We're here for you. Give us a call at 844-885-4200. Or if you want us to put together a full retirement legacy blueprint, that's really what we focus on, helping you put together a legal, financial, and tax plan that's best for you. Not best for some advisor who only has a suitability standard, but a plan that's best for you. We'll give our office a call at 844-885-4200, or you can visit us online at castlewealthgroup.com. So with that, I hope you learned about the alphabet soup of Medicare. Really, breaking it down, it's three different things. It's original Medicare, which is Medicare Part A and B. Again, you're going to have premiums for Part B. Or you might choose the Advantage plan, which is Medicare Part C, that can cover A and B, as well as third part is Medicare Part D, which is the prescription drug coverage. So most people choose either original Medicare or the Part D, and then they add in that drug program. So with that, it's been great. Make it a great week. Take care.
Learn more about Chris Berry and how he can help your family by visiting online at thechrisberryshow.com. That's thechrisberryshow.com. You can also call Chris Berry at 810-355-2584. That's 810-355-2584. This program content reflects the opinions of Chris Berry and his guests, not Castle Wealth Group or Advisors Excel, and is subject to change at any time without notice. Content provided herein is for informational purposes only and should not be used or construed as investment or legal advice, or a recommendation regarding the purchase or sale of any security, or to follow any legal or tax strategy. There's no guarantee that the strategist's statements, opinions, or forecasts provided herein will prove to be correct. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Indices are not available for direct investment. Any investor who attempts to mimic the performance of an index would incur fees and expenses which would reduce returns. All investing involves risk, including the potential for loss of principal. There's no guarantee that any investment plan or strategy will be successful. We recommend that you consult with a professional dedicated to your needs. This program is furnished by Chris Berry and Castle Wealth Group.